Hey Charles, my name is Jordan, which is kind of annoying this question, but now that LeBron is the all-time leading scorer in NBA history with over 39,000 point careers, also ranking top 5 in assists and still climbing rankings in rebounds, blocks, and steals, all while consistently playing 20-plus seasons at an elite level for an old man, winning 4 championships, 4 MVPs, and making 19 All-NBA teams. Who is better, Jordan or LeBron?
You know, those are some incredible stats.
They are.
Those are some incredible stats. I'm never going to say anything bad about LeBron, I told you. I think he's the 3rd best player I've ever seen play after Michael and Kobe.
And it's just basketball. At the end of the day, it's just basketball.
No, because when I play hard all the time. You know, there's no turn it on here, turn it off here. It's just 110% at all.
Larry Bird was once told by a veteran to slow down, to pace himself, to think about his future, and stop throwing his body around like every game was life or death. His response tells you everything about why the GOAT debate looks completely different when you ask people who actually played in that era.
Artis Gilmore told me one time, he played for Chicago, he said, if you expect to play a long time in this league, you better quit mopping up the floor. And I thought, well, he's crazy because that's what basketball is all about.
Bird takes it away from Wilkins, goes to the floor and gets it up ahead.
Crazy. That's how Bird described the idea of holding anything back. And decades later, a LeBron James superfan, armed with every counting stat in NBA history, walked up to Charles Barkley expecting to end the GOAT conversation with pure mathematics. The numbers were supposed to be undeniable. 40,000 points, 22 seasons, 4 rings, 19 All-NBA selections. What this fan didn't understand is that the men who built the NBA have a completely different definition of greatness, one that has nothing to do with spreadsheets. Bird wasn't in that room with Barkley. He never heard this fan's argument. He never responded to it. But everything he stood for throughout his career tears apart the longevity argument piece by piece. And by the time you understand what Bird sacrificed to compete the way he did, you'll see why the old school keeps winning this debate without even trying. So here's the scene. Barkley is doing a Q&A, and this fan steps up to the mic. His name is Jordan, which already makes this whole thing feel scripted by the basketball gods. And he launches into his case like a lawyer delivering closing arguments.
Hey Charles, my name is Jordan, which is kind of annoying this question, but now that LeBron is the all-time leading scorer in NBA history with over 39,000 point careers, also ranking top 5 in assists and still climbing rankings in rebounds, blocks, and steals, all while consistently playing 20-plus seasons at an elite level for an old man, winning 4 championships, 4 MVPs, and making 19 All-NBA teams. Who is better, Jordan or LeBron?
Every stat weaponized, every accolade highlighted. The crowd is nodding, because when you hear it laid out like that, it sounds like the conversation should be over. How do you argue against the all-time leading scorer who's also top 5 in assists with more than 2 decades of elite production? Barkley let him finish. Then he did something the fan wasn't expecting.
You know, those are some incredible stats.
They are.
Those are some incredible stats. I'm never going to say anything bad about LeBron, I told you. I think he's the 3rd best player I've ever seen play after Michael and Kobe.
3rd best he's ever seen. Not 1st, not 2nd, 3rd. And then Barkley started pulling apart the foundation of every counting stat this fan had memorized.
It's just different eras. I love LeBron. I'm not going to say anything bad about him. He didn't go to college for 3 years. You have to factor that in also. He had a 3-year head start on Michael. Okay, since you want me that. So, I'm going to just give a couple of things about, if he wanted to do it fair, he would say, well, how many games did Michael Jordan play compared to LeBron?
This is the part of the conversation that stat warriors refuse to have. LeBron entered the league at 18 years old. Michael Jordan didn't. Jordan spent 3 years at North Carolina before he ever played a single NBA game. That gave LeBron a massive head start in raw totals from day one. Every point, every rebound, every assist in LeBron's career totals includes 3 full seasons of NBA production that Jordan never had the chance to accumulate. And when Barkley reframed the debate around equal opportunity instead of raw accumulation, the entire narrative shifted.
And actually, if you look at the numbers, Michael actually had 5,000 more points in his career, same number of games. 5,000, which is 2.5 NBA seasons.
Same number of games, 5,000 more points. That's not a rounding error. That's a gap the size of multiple all-star caliber seasons. The all-time scoring record suddenly looks a lot less definitive when you account for the head start. But here's where this conversation goes somewhere the spreadsheet crowd never wants to go. Because raw totals don't tell you anything about what a player sacrificed to compete the way they did. Bird played 13 seasons, not 22, 13. And in those 13 seasons, he won 3 championships, 3 consecutive MVPs, and 2 finals MVPs, while transforming the Celtics into the dominant team of the 80s. He did all of this while his back was deteriorating to the point where he genuinely feared ending up in a wheelchair. This is an exaggeration. Bird described his mindset during those final seasons, and it reveals something stats can never capture.
Play every night. I brought it every night. I had a good understanding that Celtics paid me to win basketball, and it was my job to win basketball. So every time I walked out there, I felt I had to win to make them happy.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I can say of everything I'd done was I gave them all. You know, I paid the price with a lot of injuries I had, but I laid it on the line every night.
Every regular season game, not just the playoffs, not just nationally televised matchups. Every single night, Bird walked onto the floor believing he had to prove he was the best player in the building. And he knew this approach was destroying his body. He admitted it openly. He just couldn't bring himself to compete any other way. When Artis Gilmore warned him early in his career that his style would shorten his time in the league, Bird's response was 4 words: "I can't play any other way." Bird's back problems started in 1985. He was shoveling gravel to build a driveway for his mother, and something gave out. That injury haunted him for the rest of his career and decades beyond retirement. During his final seasons, Bird needed an hour on a stationary bike before games just to loosen his back enough to function. His teammates watched him go through this ritual in the locker room before playoff games against Detroit, pedaling through pain that would have sidelined most players permanently. Bird himself admitted what was running through his mind every time he stepped on the court. Every time I would play, I was wondering if I was going to be in a wheelchair. Was I ever going to be able to walk on the beach or hold my kids? Read that again. Bird was risking the ability to walk for the rest of his life. And he kept playing anyway, not because he was under contract, not because he needed the money, because sitting out wasn't something his competitive makeup would allow. In his first 9 seasons, Bird missed only 21 games out of 738 possible. That's a 97% availability rate while dealing with chronic back issues that would have given any modern player's medical staff a collective heart attack. Now here's where this connects to something bigger, because Michael Jordan recently broke his silence on NBC about the state of modern basketball, and what he said validates everything Bird's career represented.
What do you think of when you hear the term load management thrown around?
It shouldn't be needed, first and foremost. You know, I never wanted to miss a game because it was an opportunity to prove. The fans are there to watch me play. I want to impress that guy.
Michael Jordan, load management shouldn't exist. That's Jordan's position. Every game was a chance to prove something, and the reason went beyond personal pride. Jordan talked about the fans in the upper deck who saved their money for months just to afford 1 ticket to see him play. Taking a night off meant letting those people down.
No, because when I play hard all the time. You know, there's no turn it on here, turn it off here. It's just 110% at all.
No switch, no coasting through January games to save energy for May. The same intensity every night regardless of opponent or circumstance. This is the exact philosophy Bird lived by even when doctors were warning him he might never walk again.
I twist my ankle, and I had a teammate, David Greenwood. He says, you know, you twist your ankle, young fella, come over and sit with me. You know, this is you need to I said, no, man, I'm trying to make a name for myself. There's no way I can sit. You know, I need to get out there and show what I'm capable of. I want to play. I want to win.
Same mentality, same refusal to sit, same understanding that competitors don't take nights off, no matter what their body is telling them. Bird addressed the entire concept of players, complaining about being tired, and his take was savage. He pointed out that modern basketball has more timeouts than his era ever did. Television timeouts, mandatory stoppages, strategic breaks throughout the game. His position was simple. With all the extra rest built into the modern game, players should be able to go 2 games back-to-back without complaining about fatigue. A full game is only 48 minutes, and nobody plays the entire game anymore. There's no excuse. When Bird was leading the league in minutes, at 40 per game in 1987, while dealing with a back that barely functioned, someone asked him about the workload. His answer was 3 words that defined his entire philosophy. Minutes don't mean nothing. The man was grinding his spine into dust, and his response to concerns about playing time was complete dismissal. That's not stubbornness. That's a fundamentally different understanding of what the job requires. Barkley pushed into another area that separates the eras, the question of how these players built their championship teams. Bird spent his entire career with Boston. The Celtics drafted him, and he never left. When the Sixers and Lakers were beating him in the playoffs during his early years, Bird didn't start scheming about which free agents he could recruit to even the odds. He stayed put and figured out how to beat them with the roster. The Celtics drafted Kevin McHale. They traded for Robert Parrish. The front office built the supporting cast through scouting and asset management. Bird's job was to make it work with whatever Boston put around him, and he made it work to the tune of 3 championships. LeBron took a different path. 7 years in Cleveland ended with the decision and a coordinated move to Miami with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. That single moment changed how superstars approach free agency forever. When Miami declined, LeBron went back to Cleveland and immediately pushed for the Kevin Love trade. When that situation got difficult, he moved to Los Angeles and paired up with Anthony Davis. 4 franchises, 3 different championship cores, a career defined by assembling the right pieces around himself rather than winning with what the organization provided. That's not a criticism of the strategy. It clearly works, but it's a fundamentally different approach than what Bird represented. And the old school values loyalty in ways that modern basketball doesn't prioritize. After everything Barkley explained, someone asked the fan the only question that matters. Forget the stats, forget the accolades, 1 game, everything on the line. Who do you want?
But let me ask you a question. I want you to be honest with me in your heart.
All right.
If you had 1 game and you said, I need to win game 7, would you want LeBron, Michael, or Kobe in 1 game win all?
LeBron.
Okay.
The fan stuck to his answer. But here's the thing about Larry Bird and clutch moments. The man wanted the ball in his hands when everything was on the line more than he wanted anything else in the world. Bird explained it to Bill Russell in an interview that captured his competitive psychology perfectly. There's no doubt I believe now that I'm one of the best players in the league down the stretch. Not only scoring, but I might have to play the defensive end, take the charge, make a steal, get the rebound. When the game's tied 2 or 3 minutes to go, I feel that I got something. I think I know how to win the game, not just scoring, whatever the moment required. Bird believed he could deliver on either end of the floor in any situation when the game was there to be won, and his track record backed up every ounce of that confidence. Bird's legendary trash talk worked because he never said anything he couldn't back up immediately. Before the 1986 three-point contest, Bird walked into a locker room full of silent competitors and announced he was just looking around to see who was coming in second. Then he went out and won. Kevin McHale told the story of Bird calling his shot against Phoenix. Bird told his teammates exactly what he was going to do. Bust the play, shoot the 3. As the ball was still in the air, Bird turned toward the Phoenix bench and yelled, "Told you so," before jogging to the locker room. The shot went in. During his 60-point game against the Hawks in 1985, Bird was so untouchable that the opposing bench started cheering for him. Doc Rivers described Bird calling out his shooting spots in advance while Hawks players stood up and gave each other high fives after watching him drain shot after shot. Mike Fratello fined his own players for celebrating the opposing team's performance. That's not just confidence, that's dominance so complete that your opponents can't help but appreciate what they're witnessing even as you're destroying them. Everything comes back to one fundamental difference in how these generations approached competition. After losing in the finals, LeBron said something that captures the gap better than any statistic ever could.
And it's just basketball. At the end of the day, it's just basketball.
Just basketball. The thing Bird was willing to risk permanent disability for. The thing Jordan refused to take a single night off from even when injured. Just basketball. That phrase would never come out of Bird's mouth. It would never come out of Jordan's mouth because for those men, basketball was never just anything. It was the thing that defined who they were as competitors and as people. Bird's entire approach to the game was built on the belief that every night mattered completely, that the fans deserved his best effort regardless of what his body was telling him, that sitting out was a form of surrender he couldn't accept even when doctors warned him about wheelchairs and permanent damage. You could admire LeBron's longevity. You can respect the strategic approach to load management that has allowed him to perform at an elite level for more than 2 decades. But don't pretend it's the same thing as what Bird did. They're different philosophies about what competition requires. Bird won 3 championships in 13 seasons with one franchise. LeBron has 4 in 22 seasons with 3 different teams. Bird won 3 consecutive MVPs at his peak. LeBron has 4 spread across his career, but never strung together more than 2. Bird won Finals MVP both times. The Celtics took the title during his prime years. He never lost on that stage when his team got there. LeBron's 10 Finals appearances include 6 losses. That's more championship round defeats than victories. The counter-argument is that losing in the finals beats not making it there at all, and there's logic in that. But Bird made the finals and won, repeatedly, without changing teams to improve his odds. All NBA first-team selections went to Bird 9 times in 13 seasons. That rate of peak recognition demonstrates sustained excellence without needing extra years to pad the totals. The old-school argument has never been that LeBron isn't great. Barkley said it himself. 3rd best player he's ever seen. Incredible stats, amazing career, but 3rd, not 1st, not 2nd, 3rd. What should worry LeBron supporters is how consistent this verdict has been across different generations of players. Julius Erving left LeBron off his top 2 all-time teams entirely. His reasoning was specific: super team construction. The Athletic polled active NBA players in 2024, and Jordan still won. 45.9% to 42.1%. These aren't retired legends with grudges. These are the guys currently in the league who watch LeBron every night, and they still give the edge to a man who last played more than 2 decades ago. When the people who actually played the game at the highest level keep landing on the same side of the argument, that tells you something stats alone can't capture. The LeBron superfan approached that microphone believing raw numbers would settle everything. Points scored, games played, years of production. The math was supposed to be undeniable. What Barkley demonstrated, and what Bird's legacy proves without him ever knowing this conversation happened, is that the basketball community measures greatness differently than accountants do. Championships matter more than finals appearances when half of those appearances end in losses. Peak dominance matters more than sustained longevity when that longevity comes from strategic rest. Loyalty to one franchise matters more than assembling super teams when the guys who built this league never had that option. Bird gave everything he had every single night until his body physically couldn't continue. He traded his long-term health for 13 seasons of refusing to take a game off. He won 3 championships with the team that drafted him without ever looking for an easier path. That approach produced fewer counting stats than playing 22 seasons with load management and team changes, but it produced something the stat sheet will never capture: the respect of everyone who competed against him. Bird didn't need to be in that room. He didn't need to respond to the superfans' arguments. His legacy speaks for itself loudly enough that the old school keeps winning this debate by default, and that might be the most brutal part of all. The argument against longevity stats doesn't even require the legends to show up and make it. Their careers already made it for them decades ago. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Does LeBron's unprecedented longevity outweigh the old-school approach of giving everything every night until your body breaks down? Or does the willingness to sacrifice your health for competition define greatness in ways counting stats never will? Hit that like button if this breakdown changed how you see the conversation. And subscribe because we're pulling back the curtain on basketball's biggest debates every single week.